Since the beginning of the 21st century, growing attention has been placed on the education in the United States in the fields of mathematics and science. STEM, a well-known acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, has come to the forefront of both the United States and international conversation in education, commerce, innovation, and competition. The term is used in classrooms from preschool to postgraduate and to describe the careers in the disciplines. As STEM has become one of the newest slogans in education, it boasts the goal to motivate student learning through hands-on science and math skills, as well as encourage higher-order reasoning and problem-solving skills. One current successful approach to incorporating STEM education is occurring in our once silenced school libraries in the form of makerspace. This is the foundation for my research on the making of a makerspace environment by Daphne Volay in the fall of 2019. In order to let students be creative, innovative, many school libraries have taken on a new look, a new name of makerspace, places where students can gather together to create, innovate, tinker, explore, discover, and using a variety of tools and materials. Makerspaces are created with the assumption that they help address cross-curricular standards while providing experimental, project-based activities that reinforce learning as a creative approach. The maker environment is a vehicle that will allow students to be a part of the necessary return to the constructivist education. It is the movement that allows students to be creative, innovative, independent, and technologically literate, not an alternative way to learn, but what modern learning should look like. As maker spaces grow in popularity, education professionals need to know what they are and how they can best be used to promote student learning. Knowing the definition of a makerspace and how it relates to curriculum standards at the national, state, and school levels will help teachers implement an effective makerspace environment. This qualitative research attempts to understand how teachers define, perceive, and implement a makerspace environment into curriculum standards. To do so, the following question will be the basis of research. How do public secondary teachers define and use a makerspace environment? Jonathan Gerlach suggested in his National Science Teachers Association report, educators know the meaning of STEM education, but many do not know what it really means. This theory was supported by research conducted at a major research university indicating even individuals who act daily with STEM education are a bit confused to its meaning. These authors conducted a survey at the University of Cincinnati where they asked faculty members two questions. What is STEM and how does STEM influence or impact your life? They reported nearly 3/4 of the survey faculty members possessed a relative conception of STEM but did not share a common conceptualization of STEM. Their conceptions were most likely based on their academic discipline or how STEM impacted their daily lives rather than on an established definition. The researchers' qualitative study resulted in the team finding that among faculty members in both STEM and non-STEM disciplines, even with an extensive involvement STEM atmosphere, there was no operational definition or conceptualization of STEM. The University of Nevada found when STEM academic teachers are asked to define STEM education, most use broad definitions, simply defining the acronym, but giving little insight to what STEM education really was and how it should be implemented. This study continued to suggest that the lack of clear definition was one reason why teachers had difficult conceptualization approaching regarding STEM education. Recent research conducted at White House Independent School District found when teachers were surveyed as to the definition of STEM education, a large majority simply defined it as a mere acronym and communicated a perception related to isolated STEM disciplines. Very few of the respondents discussed the integrated nature of STEM education, and still fewer communicated an understanding of the workforce and global implications of STEM education. These results were evident that a common operational definition has not reached the education community, and there is much work to be done in the professional growth as it pertains to STEM education. Many school districts have included the makerspace approach as part of their school's STEM initiative in their district strategic plan to aid in the formation of much-needed definition to STEM education. Tracy Marshall from the University of Northern Ohio conducted a qualitative study to deepen the understanding of how students and learning are achieved using a makerspace. In her study, Marshall selected 5 Iowa core standards and a sample of 3 students and 2 teachers to use to evaluate the effectiveness of the use of makerspace and deepening the understanding of the selected standards. Through a series of direct observations and one-on-one interviews with the participants, Marshall found that when the participants were provided an opportunity to create, learn, and make learning their free period in the high school library's makerspace, students met the 5 selected Iowa core standards. Furthermore, researchers found that projects not only accomplished the selected standards, but exposed the students to new ideas, design, technology, integration, collaboration, and creation, key components to the effective STEM education implementation. It was the goal of this research to aid in closing the gaps made evident in the mentioned research conducted at White House ISD and by Marshall, as well as provide support for the effective implementation of the White House ISD District Strategic Plan to guarantee students are immersed in the diverse experiences through an innovative, high-quality, and relevant learning environment. The study was emailed to all full-time 9th through 12th grade faculty members of an East Texas high school. The respondents were asked to voluntarily respond to the survey upon completing prior informed consent. Use the informed consent anonymous online form. Of the 119 possible candidates, there was a total of 59 responses collected. The sample size resulted in about 49% of the population surveyed. So this figure shows the distribution of the content area. And in this diagram, we see that majority of them are high school, being it was a high school campus that was surveyed. This is their certification area or their grade levels taught. And this would depict their years of experience. So as we see, a large majority of them have more than 5 years of experience cumulative in education. This research utilized the online surveying tool SurveyMonkey to design the research survey as well as collect responses and analyze the results. The design of this study was emulated by a previous study done by the researcher earlier in White House ISD. Prior to conducting the research, the researcher first received approval from the school administration to conduct a survey of the high school staff. Then arrangements were made for the survey to be disseminated to teachers through an informational rotation station during the back-to-school staff development. The survey link was converted to a QR code, which was projected for participants to scan prior to start of the information presentation about the Campus Makerspace program. The link directed participants to a SurveyMonkey where they first consented to the participation of the study, and participants then entered their responses to the 3 survey questions about the definition of makerspace, their perception of makerspace, and their current use of this campus makerspace. The survey was also collected general demographic information such as grade levels taught, subject area, years experience. Once the survey responses were collected, the researcher analyzed the results. Keyword phrases were highlighted and categorized broadly to identify patterns and differences in teacher responses, and the highlights were represented repetition in the code across the data. The responses were categorized among the merging codes, and these codes were used to find the broad categories. The responses to the first research question, what is a campus makerspace? Define it in your own words, was straightforward and easy to code. Respondents defined their notion of a makerspace or simply indicated no knowledge of the makerspace. Of the respondents, 74.58%, 44 of the 59, described some notion of the definition of a campus makerspace, leaving the remaining 15 out of the 59 indicating no knowledge or understanding of what a makerspace was. Among the informed respondents, 29 of them defined a campus makerspace as a space that promotes and allows creativity and innovation among students, while 7 defined the makerspace as just a project area, and the remaining informed, which was 3, described makerspace as a hands-on learning. And 3 others defined them as an incorporation of technology, and some of them, the last 2, defined it as more of a social interaction. The second question, what is the perception of the innovation, the initiative to create a makerspace environment on each campus, asked the respondents to rate their perception in one of the following categories. I love the idea and plan to use the space. I do not know a lot about it and would like to see how it supports my classroom. I am indifferent to the idea and would not see an application in my curriculum, or I see no value and feel it is a waste of resources. The figure below indicates the responses. As we can see, 60% felt that they did know what it was, but they would like to know more information. The response to the third question and final research question, how do you currently implement our campus makerspace into your curriculum? Respondents gave suggestions of how they implemented or will implement makerspace. 49 out of the 50 indicated they did not currently implement the campus makerspace at all in their curriculum, and leaving the remaining 10 out of 15 indicating the use of a makerspace for projects or plan to implement. Within the respondents who indicated no implementation, 6 are teachers who are new to the campus and therefore have not had the opportunity of implementation. The survey results suggested a bright future for the Campus Makerspace initiative promoted by White House ISD School District Strategic Plan. As it appeared, most teachers have an appropriate notion of the meaning of the movement and have a positive perception leading to a desire to strengthen capacity to incorporate the makerspace in standard alignment and integration into curriculum. However, the concern of utilization remains. Based on the large majority of teachers surveyed indicating they do not utilize the campus makerspace, it is evident the movement still exists only as a movement and not as an incorporated best practice. These findings support the notion that exposure to content area focused makerspace professional development is necessary to move beyond an educational fad. As we expected, a large percentage of teachers seem to have an established conception of campus makerspace environment, but seem to have a limited knowledge of the functional incorporation and execution with respect to their content area. As with most research, this study design presents a few limitations. The first limitation is the size of the sample. Given this survey was conducted only at one campus, the sample size in return is small. This has the potential to reduce the power of the study by increasing the margin of error. Secondly, many teachers' definition of makerspace environment may be strongly influenced by training they have encountered through their profession. Such training may have defined a makerspace for the teachers, therefore shaping their personal definition. Lastly, with most qualitative research, this study will rely on the generalizations drawn from the responses of the survey. The main limitation in generalization is that it does not provide evidence of a causal link for individuals and draws inferences and conclusions based only on the gathered data. In a world where the definition of education is changing to becoming more than just the dissemination of knowledge, educational leaders must take an appropriate action to support and equip teachers with the skills and resources needed to inspire students through challenging and innovative opportunities. This research has 2 recommendations that would help benefit the implementation of the Campus Makerspace Initiative. The first recommendation is to provide teachers with the appropriate training as to the rationale behind makerspace movement. Over the past 50 years, our education system has seen several education reforms that have greatly shaped and transformed our educational philosophies. Unfortunately, it's only our philosophies that have been changed. Our classrooms look identical to 150 years ago. For many classrooms today, we see a teacher-directed dissemination of knowledge upon compliant students have little to no ownership of their education. The makerspace movement is a component of the constructivist approach to learning that allows students to form their own learning. In a technology-rich world, education has taken on a new definition, and students no longer must wait for knowledge to be bestowed upon them. Current students have knowledge at their fingertips. The term education is no longer the dissemination of knowledge, it is the ability to acquire the knowledge to solve the problem at hand. It is imperative educational leaders encourage teachers to embrace this shift in education and break outside the ancient system of a traditional classroom. The second recommendation is to provide teachers with the necessary professional development and standard-aligned makerspace curriculums to support the desires to grow in the incorporation of the utilization of the campus makerspace. Educational leaders must must realize that we must do more than just create a makerspace environment at each campus. We must equip students to utilize and provide them with the standard-aligned curriculums and incorporate the makerspace. Most teachers already struggle with the strict timelines created by the high-stake testing environment. Therefore, a campus makerspace, unless intentionally incorporated into the curriculum, can feel like an extra that they do not have time to utilize. Therefore, it is the job of leaders to build scaffolds around these barriers and mesh this initiative into the curriculum selection process and professional development plan. This research provides one main opportunity for further research. However, before I discuss this recommendation, I strongly believe the first opportunity would be the implementation of the previously mentioned recommendations. Following the implementation of these recommendations, I'd like to see the results from a comparative study comparing how teachers define, perceive, and implement a makerspace environment into the curriculum standards before and after exposure to the makerspace-focused professional development. This further research would help guide and direct the implementation of the makerspace movement, guaranteeing students are immersed into diverse experiences through an innovative, high-quality, and relevant learning environment. Thank you for taking time to listen to the results of my research. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the email listed here, daphnebole@gmail.com. A special thanks to the resources used to guide my research.